As you all know, Chicago's a killing field right now, and they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need him. Freedom, freedom. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense and I'm a smart person.
Okay. Great common sense. He's a smart person and humble. That's what you love about Donald Trump, isn't he? He's so damn humble. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I don't know about you guys. I figure if you're watching this show, you don't want a dictator either. We don't want a dictator in America. And this is Trump's new thing, the diverse from the Epstien file. Actually, it's just Trump. Okay. And this is thing, and I know it's late in the week. You guys have seen these videos already, but I want to talk about that and pull that thread as we go deeper in this conversation with my guest. But he didn't really just let go the whole dictator thing this week. He kept coming back to it. He really wants you to know that people want him to be a dictator, but he's totally not a dictator.
A guy in Illinois, the governor of Illinois, saying that crime has been much better in Chicago recently, and Trump is a dictator. And most people say, if you call him a dictator, if he stops crime, he can be whatever he wants. I'm not a dictator, by the way, but he can be whatever he wants.
No, he can't do whatever he wants, and he can't do whatever he wants as the president. It doesn't take a rocket science to know. It takes a 6th grade civics student to know the president doesn't get to do whatever he wants. And no, we don't want him to be a dictator to stop crime. That's kind of like Hitler being famous for fixing the trains, right? Because there's a lot more that goes into being a dictator. They're also bullies. They're also fascists, and they're also evil. I mean, this isn't dictatorial at all. Look at him talking to his education secretary about my alma mater, Harvard, because as you know, I have to mention Harvard once a week.
Linda, how about it? And we want nothing less than $500 million from Harvard. Don't negotiate, Linda. They've been very bad. Don't negotiate. Go ahead.
Oh, that's working. Well, Mr. President, thank you very much.
Hilarious. We just want $500 million for a private university because they've been bad. That's not at all dictatorial or gangster or douchey, even actually. That's he just cracks those guys up in that room. But don't worry, he's totally not a dictator. Like, this isn't dictatorial.
If you all haven't stopped by the Department of Labor, Mr. President, I invite you to see your big, beautiful face on a banner in front of the Department of Labor, because you are really the transformational president of the American worker, along with the American flag and President Roosevelt.
Oh my God. Did you hear that? Did you see that? Like, oh, transformational. I mean, honestly, Kim Jong-un is going, as Kim Jong-un's over there like, oh man, dude, take it down a notch. It's a bit much. This is an American cabinet. This is the United States of America. These people are insane. And he's telling us he's not a dictator. At this one, Steve Witkoff, our wonderful envoy to Russia and Ukraine, who literally brought a medal back from Putin to a U.S. family. A guy joined the Russian army and died, which, according to American law, is actually illegal. He carried a medal to an American family whose son joined the Russians to invade Ukraine. This is Witkoff at the meetings.
And we hope to settle them before the end of this year. Your team is nothing short of incredible. And there's only one thing I wish for, that Nobel committee finally gets its act together and realizes that you are the single finest candidate since the this Nobel Award was ever talked about, to receive that reward. Beyond your success is game-changing out in the world today. And I hope everybody one day wakes up and realizes that.
Nobel. No, it's even spelled Nobel. I mean, Nobel. Nobel Prize. These guys are idiots. And as that meeting unfolded for like 2 hours, they were literally clamoring over each other to get their lips closer to his behind, his bulbous ass. It is insanity. And that's what we're facing right now. And look, a lot of us have been predicting it for a long time. We would see authoritarianism, we would see it, and things are unfolding. In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like the old frog in the boiling water, right? It keeps getting hotter and hotter, and Americans are sitting here kind of chirping away, waiting for the next fly to come by. And it's not that way. So this is a conversation we need to have. There's a lot going on. So I was thrilled for the opportunity to get my friend Steven Beschloss on the show. He has been on the show before. He's brilliant. I love talking to him. So let's go to the show. As you know, I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy, the FP Wellman. right here on the Midas Touch Network every Friday night at 7 Eastern. We run it live so we can chat with you guys. I'm glad you're here. Tell your friends, hit subscribe, all those cool things. Let's get on with the show. Welcome back. I am still Fred Wellen as I was 15 seconds ago. Time flies. We're having fun. It's so great to have you guys here on a Friday night. It's Labor Day weekend, an important weekend in America. I was born next week. That's my birthday, so everybody celebrate that. I always used to tell my kids when Labor Day fell the same day as my birthday, I was like, it was in honor of my mom being in labor. They bought it. Anyways, great to have you guys here for the Labor Day weekend. I hope you're out enjoying. I hope you're here watching us or watching us over the weekend while you're busy. I've got a great show. Steven Beschloss has created award-winning content as a writer, journalist, editor, filmmaker, consistently showing his passion for our country. His Substack is called America. So it's a lot to talk about with what's going on in our country. So let me welcome our friend Steven to the show. Steven, welcome back to On Democracy. My God, I was looking at our calendar. It's been like 2 years since you joined me.
Oh, that's crazy. Fred, it's
Isn't it?
great to be with you. And it's, has anything changed in the last 2 years? Do we still have a country? I'm just trying to remember.
I know, just lots to talk about. Let's talk about the news.
Can I just say, I mean, I heard a little bit of your opening with that repulsive cabinet meeting. I don't know about you. I don't really want to live in North Korea. I don't want to live in Nazi Germany. I actually am committed to living in democratic America. And the people that were around that table who were busy sucking up to their leader, that's maybe as disgusting as Trump saying, "Oh, I don't really want to be a dictator," is that group of people has abandoned any sense of principles about what it means to be a representative, a public servant in our country. And look, I think that's part of what we're dealing with here is not simply the question of the malignancy that's in the Oval Office. It's all the people that surround him in leadership roles, and and it's a Supreme Court, and it's a feckless Republican Congress, and it's millions of Americans who are absolutely fine with it and applauding it.
Yeah, let's dig into that. I guess we start at that very top, at the Trump cabinet. I mean, something I've seen you say before is that some of these people like Stephen Miller and others who are up there, and some of these cabinet sketches, the way they're behaving, the way they're pursuing people in that cabinet, in that meeting, Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about how they caught a guy damaging Teslas. They're going to throw him in jail for 20 years. We have Trump saying he's going to, throw you in jail for a year for burning the American flag. Completely illegal. I mean, it does feel like these guys feel like, we call them henchmen a lot, right? His henchmen feel like they're untouchable, right? I mean, They are acting like they're going to be in power for a while and nothing's going to happen. I think your study of history would say otherwise, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that the 1,000-year Reich didn't last 1,000 years. And it's worth noting because I've taken a little time in the last days to read about the Nuremberg trials. If we can jump there and make the point that you had a lot of Nazis who thought they were part of a 1,000-year Reich who ended up being convicted, executed by hanging. And I'm not saying that we're quite there yet, but I think the responsibility is to ensure that we have some accountability when we see our way through this, because I do think we will, even if these people think that they can scrap the Constitution and ignore the rule of law, and that they're somehow going to get away with it in the end.
Well, that's the thing, and I saw a video the other day. A guy was saying, "Oh, well, the troops in DC," and we'll talk about that more, but the troops in DC, this is like the Night of the Long Knives when Hitler took down his enemies. Like, okay, history is a guide, and it's so the Constitution.
For the record, can I say, especially in the first term, I went out of my way not to make the direct comparisons. I wasn't calling Donald Trump Hitler. I wasn't, making a point every time sort of saying we're in, Nazi Germany and so forth. But the escalation that's happened since he took power this time makes those comparisons really unavoidable.
Yeah, and I do caution those comparisons too. And in this case, look, the evil bastards that conducted those killings and that purge were his brown shirts and SS that had been with him since day one, way back in 1929, 30. They weren't American soldiers who were all volunteer force, National Guardsmen and all. to me, I find it, as much as he's disrespecting our soldiers by placing them there, and now we see this week, they're cleaning up garbage now. The ultimate irony of the Trump administration, we fire all the park administration people, park service people, and then we bring in National Guardsmen and pay them extra to clean up the garbage that National Park Service would have cleaned up. But again, having served 22 years, it's almost a little offensive to me, to be honest. Hey, these troops, they're gonna, okay, that's not who the American soldier is. And I have a lot of people say to me, and I think you'll appreciate this too, it's like, when are they gonna start disobeying orders, Fred? And I tell all the time, when it's necessary. Like, I tell people all the time in speeches, I would like my soldiers to keep their powder dry till he really wants to do something really illegal. Like, him bringing them to DC is actually illegal. Him having beautification is legal. We can't cry wolf, but there's come a point where they're going to have to do something really bad. Maybe it's shoot civilians. Maybe it is rape.
Well, they have armed them.
I want them to be ready then. You know what I mean? I think we have to pick our line. And I think I'm hoping that many of my fellow service members are doing that. Do you see that yourself? Or
well, I think you're right. It's important not to push it too quickly, and I do think it needs to be done in a way that finally is that serious and the goal is clear and achievable. I mean, look, I think we're talking about DC now, and we're talking about the addition of troops that are coming from other states, other red states. It is a military occupation, even if the numbers are small, even if the illegalities are questionable. I think the extension from here, what I think will be an overreach. You go to his talk about is, Chicago next. Well, maybe it's Chicago, maybe it's New York, maybe it's Baltimore, wherever those are. And I, weirdly, I'm actually encouraged by, what I think can play out there. Obviously, it's wrong for this to happen, but I think you've got a series of Democratic governors who understand there's a federal system. There is a separation of powers. They do have the right to manage their states, and they are going to defy Donald Trump and the overreaching efforts of his regime once they arrive.
That was one of my questions coming up. Is it really does feel like a lot of ways. Well, Congress has been out of session for August, of course, doing their thing, trying to run for office, pretending to have town halls. A lot of the Republicans. My own congressman certainly isn't. She's too busy doing photo ops. You'll love this. My representative senator email yesterday saying that she had X meeting at one place, and my staff attended the state fair. I got so many people saying it to me, Steven, saying, "You notice that key line, the staff," because she could be barred to go out that dirty throats. Having said that,
busy making money on the public.
Making money. Yeah, exactly. That's her. So they're home right now, and it seems like the battle has shifted to that one. Wes Moore's been sparring with Trump all week. Obviously, the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, has been sparring with. That's who he was talking about in that video. I mean, are you seeing? Tell me what your thoughts are as you're watching that. Obviously Ferguson, of course. Obviously, Gavin Newsom is making him insane, which is a lot of fun. I mean, it does feel like the governors are stepping up in his role of being the foil for his authoritarian dreams, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think it's necessary. I think their power is clear, and honestly, disappointingly, it becomes more important because we haven't seen at the national level Democratic leaders who have sufficiently grasped the urgency of the moment, who understood the way that J.B. Pritzker put it, that it's a 5-alarm fire. I'm ringing the alarm bell. I mean, he's said, and he's asked people to engage in nonviolent resistance. I mean, I think there's a collection of Democratic senators and Congress people who are aware of the urgency of it. I mean, Chris Murphy is a good example, who's talked about disruption, and Cory Booker, and we can kind of work our way through, but it really hasn't translated yet into a way that it's made a difference, I think, and that's been disappointing. But I think right now we're at a point that as Trump escalates, the Democratic governors, and look, there's 23 of them around the country. They can act individually. They can also act collectively. And I don't. I'm not interested in seeing secession and a civil war. I don't think that's in, the best interest of the United States of America. But I think it's important for Democratic governors to understand not only their individual power, but also their collective power. And I think that's really the next stage of this.
And they have a lot. They do have a lot of power. They have power of their National Guard. It's interesting that Trump's of course threatened to nationalize the National Guard, and has discovered he really can't do that because what he wants to use them for, if he nationalizes, they can't do it. So he's in a which is why also I think one of the reasons you saw these National Guardsmen cleaning up trash is because probably one or two of those guards say, "Hey, I'll send you my guys," but they're not out there to rouse people or arrest them because they're pressing very highly against their rule. And of course, again, I as a soldier for a life, 22 years in the Army, seeing my fellow service members being used in such a way to harm their fellow citizens is a horrifying thing. And it's just this. Wes Moore has been saying, I love Wes Moore, has been saying, he's like, it's just disrespectful of why they serve. I mean, if you think about when you talk National Guard, the ones that are in DC right now, you have a real job. They have a day job. Okay. And we are in an affordability crisis in this country. You've taken them out of their day job, away from their families as school starts, and sent them to Washington, D.C. to clean up garbage. At what point do the canary in the coal line is going to be re-enlistment? They're all like, screw this. Why am I?
Well, I've heard that the re-enlistment efforts are way down, and obviously people are discouraged because they thought that they were getting into this for serving their country, and then they end up finding that they're being asked to serve an orange dictator who wants them to clean up garbage. I mean,
Right.
this isn't serious, and it's and they know that it's deeply wrong. And the thing that concerns me, honestly, I mean, we're 7 months plus into this. There have been a handful of important protests. The No Kings protest probably being the best example. Over 5 million people a part of that. But I don't think we've yet hit a point where the outrage of the public has reached a point that we've reached some kind of catalyzing moment where enough Americans, and I use enough to refer to the Erica Chenoweth research that says 3.5% of the population starts to be the level that you need to have a meaningful political change, and in the American context. And she was studying political change of governments and leaders all over the world and came up with that percentage. What she's found is that in a national 3.5%, in American context, is 12 million people, right? And so I don't know whether there is a single catalyzing event. We still seem to have, No Kings was fantastic, but it was wide ranging in terms of the reasons why people were there. And I think this movement toward there being a finite number of reasons. Is it military occupations? Is it escalating inflation? Is it other dictatorial actions of Trump that people finally say, like, enough is enough? But we haven't hit that point, and I'm worried about, and I think you said it, this the boiling frog syndrome here, where people are little by little accepting this incremental change, adapting to it, maybe experiencing normalcy bias, where they think that, well, it's really, not that bad, or it's really not going to hit me, so I can live with it. But, this indifference or the complacency or the comfort that people have that makes them not want to take the risks right now. I mean, I think we're going to hit a point where that's got to change if we're going to see our way through this.
I think, when we were talking the pre-show, we were a little talking about how, bankruptcies are their highest level since the pandemic, foreclosures their highest level since the pandemic, and we're not in the middle of a crisis. That was a pandemic. I think when we talk about that motivating factor, my fear, unfortunately, is it'll be something catalytic, like a disaster, like a military disaster or something. Like, say, one of our bases, something that really affects millions of Americans, and this administration will fail miserably. I mean, look, if there's a catastrophic hurricane in Mississippi right now, they've sent their troops to freaking DC or so along those lines. I worry that it might be that, but that may be the catalytic in the end, is the idea that, a collapse, if you will, which scares me, because if we've got record numbers of bankruptcies now, what happens when that catastrophe comes? So many people are living on the edge right now, losing healthcare, losing their job. Here in my congressional district that I live in, the number one job, the number one profession is healthcare. So not only are we going to lose our healthcare, people will lose healthcare, they're also going to lose their jobs. And so we've got an unfolding disaster in slow motion that I'm not sure what will be the cap. But you're right, people just aren't paying attention. And I think turning to another portion, something you talk about a lot. I know you and Mark have had. You used to do the media misses. Lawyers don't know they. And you kind of talked about today that the media is also part of this boiling water situation, I think. And I know Curtis, you beat up on the Washington Post a lot because they've so much surrendered. I mean, they just did this story. I saw your piece. I think you posted it today on Wednesday about the Washington Post kind of doing a fun kind of giddy story about how Trump gets to be a mayor now, like it's something funny that the man he's taken over the city. The media is missing this moment, aren't they?
Yeah, journalistic malpractice, I think was the way we put it, and the egregiousness of treating this like a human interest story, the fun take on the guy who's always dreamed about being a big city mayor, and now he gets to in Washington D.C. with his military occupation and his dictatorial ambitions, and this writer wanted to do a cute story about that, and we can focus on this one guy, and it was a parody of what a story should be. It's a parody at a time when the country is in danger, and somebody is like amused by Donald Trump's showmanship and his brash freewheeling style. I mean, these are the kind of things that this story wanted to emphasize, and maybe his reason really is because he wants to fix potholes and he's wanting to end crime so that he can increase tourism in Washington D.C. I mean, these were among the things that this story was proposing as an explanation of what was going on, what is going on in D.C. and it's nuts, and it's a danger, and it's not just this moment, this normalizing. We know this has been going on for years and years.
Yeah.
People
Well, we
who
talked.
live
I looked at our
online.
question. I looked at our script from last time you were on, and we talked about the media. That's actually why you came on, is you and Mark were talking about media misses. I mean, it has been an ongoing problem through the Biden administration. Trump won, and it really has since you and I last talked. I think in many ways it's 1,000 times even worse this time. That they just simply cannot step up to the moment, can they?
No, and they're still willing to honestly refer to this regime, and it is a regime, as if we're in a usual political process where you can talk about horse races and you can talk about who's up and who's down, and Donald Trump's political skill and all these things that are at this point so far beyond really what the conversation is about. It's not even about. I understand there are there are elections to come. There are Democrats and there are Republicans, but really this is about those who commit themselves to democracy and those who have abandoned it, and those are the only two sides, and there's not a lot of middle.
Yeah, there really is, and it's uncomfortable. People pick a side, but at some point we have to pick a side, and the side isn't necessarily. I think we've also reached a point in this boiling water of we're beyond whether it's a Republican or a Democratic side. We are on a side of average people are struggling. We look, the fact is, since you and I last talked, the front row people at the inauguration were the billionaires, right? People are lining their pockets. Here in Missouri, the governor just signed a bill that got rid of the capital gains tax. First state in the union to do that. Okay. We're digging a $600 million hole in the annual budget of the state that's already in the bottom third or fourth of the country for healthcare for it's so there just seems to be a moment where we're seeing a sort of almost an oligarchy building, aren't we? I mean, it feels like a guild. Do you ever think about the Gilded Age scenario as much as I do?
Well, all you need to do is look at that big, beautiful bill, that big,
Right.
ugly bill, and you can see how, the cutting away of money for healthcare and for food assistance is all for the purpose of being able to expand these trillion-dollar tax cuts to the richest Americans. I mean, it's nuts. It is about an oligarchy and a kleptocracy. It is about the rich getting richer and the rich stealing from the rest of us. I mean, this is real, and the Great Depression came out of extreme income inequality. The French Revolution. Let's make a list of revolutions, shall we? The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, came out of the extreme inequality, the extreme wealth of the richest within their country, and finally people couldn't function, could barely eat while those people were in their gilded palaces and in their gold laden chariots and carriages and so forth, enjoying their comfortable lives. So I think I'm not urging a bloody revolution. I don't think we want to have that. We obviously want nonviolent resistance. We want a response that actually helps us get through this right now. But if history is a guide, there is a limit to how much they can keep playing this game without consequence.
It is scary. I was giving a speech this week at one of our local townships, and a gentleman got up and said, I like you, Fred, but we're not going to have an election. It's over. When are we going to start putting our bodies in the streets? And I'm not going to lie to you, man. I went hard on the guy. I said, look, man, I'm a soldier. I served for 22 years. You will never hear me encourage violence, political violence. I just won't. I'm not that guy. I've seen. I lived in Baghdad. I know. My partner at the Iraqi Security Forces headquarters, the Joint Staff's headquarters, Colonel Ali, stepped out of his house in Baghdad one day, kissed his kid goodbye, and got shot by a guy on a motorcycle passing by. I've lived in a place where political differences were solved with violence. And I will never be a guy on record ever, anywhere, even privately, saying I encourage political violence. But there is anger building that is almost entirely. I keep thinking, I go back to this split screen of the Senate arguing that big bill, that big billionaire bill. And the split screen was Jeff Bezos's $56 million wedding in Venice.
Right.
That was literally the split screen. Like the two stories of the day were $56 million ridiculous wedding versus let's take away the health care for 17 million Americans.
Right. Well, which one is more grotesque? It's kind of a hard choice.
Right.
But it's exactly versions of the same thing. And one of the things that I think about is, we're having these conversations about big, beautiful bills and military occupation in DC. And, is Donald Trump fixing potholes or solving crime or what exactly is he doing? And meanwhile, what we're not doing is solving real problems. And, the country does have real crises. We're talking today when there was just a terrible mass shooting in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Gun violence is an epidemic. Is anybody doing anything? They're not. The climate crisis is an epidemic that will have continuing consequences, not only in terms of, the emergencies when there are extreme weather events this year and next year and the year after, but also the issue of millions and millions of people around the world who can no longer live where they live. So migration is going to still be at the center of the climate crisis. Is that being dealt with in any real way? Of course it's not. The healthcare crisis. I mean, there are real serious problems, and instead we're all being held hostage by Donald Trump right now.
Yeah, and the vision, and he locks up attention. A lot of people like to say, "Well, this is a diversion. This is a diversion." I think it's a diversion. It is diversion. I mean, we haven't talked about the Epstien files this entire time, have we? And I think there's also a bait. And I'd love your thoughts on this. I feel like it's a bait. I saw a great post today by a friend who said, "Hey, look, the whole thing with the burning the flag order is a perfect example of how Donald Trump sets baits for us, and he cannot executive order a year in jail. It's not a thing. He can't make it illegal. The Supreme Court." Scalia himself, the great conservative, said you can burn a flag. That's legal. And
there were the First Amendment. There is free speech. Let's not forget that.
But the point is, they want Democrats to burn flags. They're baiting us into creating the scene they're looking for. And sure enough, a veteran I know, Jay Carey, burned a flag in front of the White House, got a bunch of video. And it's the same thing I think with this tough on crime thing. He wants Democrats to come out and say, this is bad. So they can say, look, Democrats love crime. How come, just like with the immigration, why do the Democrats want the illegals here? It's in many ways, do you think he's setting these traps that unfortunately so many of our peers do walk into too easily?
Yeah. I mean, look, he's a pathological liar. He is a gaslighter of the first order, a con artist who never is doing what he says he's doing. He's always got some other game that's sort of being played. And I think at this point, we shouldn't take anything that he's doing seriously. I mean, his desires to use the office to enrich himself are the center of everything that he's doing. And I think it needs to be evaluated accordingly. I mean, every action that's taken, you have to assume that the intentions are worse than we imagine.
Yeah, and they are hiding a lot of things. They're hiding a lot of graft. I mean, now we find out they've taken a 10% stake in Intel. I have not seen a whole lot of analysis of that. That's a really big step in American history. And now we hear also that SecDef's talking about taking a stake in all the defense companies, which have already been consolidated down to a monopoly across almost a monopoly. This is all being ignored because he's got troops running around, right? I mean, these
Right,
are
right.
very
So,
big issues.
so it's okay for Donald Trump to take over to take ownership of a number of major corporations in America. But if Zoran Mandani, the mayoral candidate, wants to open 5,
Yeah.
publicly owned, government operated grocery stores, that's socialism, and that's what we really should worry about. So,
Right. It's a great
if
piece,
it was
which is
done by a Democrat, it would be, the end of America and the end of the economy and the end of democracy. But when it's done by Donald Trump, it's okay.
so what's the prognosis? Where do we go from here, Steve? As you've looked at it, you've talked to your peers, you've done a lot of writing on it. I mean, I always try to. I'm a hopeful. I always tell people that in spite of all the things in my life I've dealt with, from going to war 4 times, losing a spouse, all those things, I've really got this persistent streak of optimism. And I told people that. I told this gentleman the other day who said, "No, there's not going to be an election. I can't work. I can't function that way. We have to do it. But hope comes with action. You can't have hope without action, right? What do you think? I mean, is there hope? Is there action to be made? Where do you see the prognosis if we're going to get out of this morass?
Yeah, I've written about the notion of hope as a discipline, and I think it's not something that you just imagine will happen, but I think it's thinking through what our reality is. It's thinking through what your values and your principles are. It's thinking through what it is that you're fighting for, and I suspect you have the same notion that I do, which is that as horrible as this moment is, as dark a chapter as it is, this is our moment as Americans to be able to step up and say that we actually believe in democracy and we care about the now 249-year-old democratic project, and that it's not going to die on our watch. And that's our duty as citizens. I think it's our responsibility, and I look at it in some ways as the opportunity that we have been given, and that means supporting leaders that are interested and committed to define this regime. I think it means being part of mass protests, and I think it means not losing sight of the fact of where we're trying to get through, right? And holding on to the notion that this is, as dark as this moment might be, Americans have lived through a lot worse moments in our history. We can surely go back to, people who died during the civil rights era. We can surely go back to the Civil War era and the history of slavery and realize what people have suffered to be able to create our future, our present. And so, to me, they've sacrificed for us. It's the least we can do to do our part to make sure that this goes forward. And the idea that J. Trump, this like huckster from the streets of Queens, is somehow going to end the American Democratic Project. I mean, I both don't believe it, and I'm devoted to making sure that it doesn't come true. And to me, hope. It's weird to say reading about the Nuremberg trials is a source of hope, but the truth is that it was actually very uplifting, because it reminded me that even the worst among us in our human history, that justice was served for at least some of them. Those who didn't commit suicide, like Adolf Hitler. I mean, they were executed, they were convicted, they were held accountable, and I look forward to whatever the proper sentence is. I look for those people to be held accountable, and I look to the country being able to get back to the values and principles that have gotten us this far.
And we'll have to seek those, and I think that's a great place to wind up. Is I say often is it's not going to happen on its own. You just can't act normal again. We're going to have to aggressively seek it out, We have to aggressively reestablish the norms, if you will. We
Yeah.
have to reestablish, and that means tighter laws. That, like you said, that means prosecution for those who broke the law. It means doesn't just mean moving on. There's a terrible American habit, I think, of, well, let's just move on. No, we can't move on. We have to establish. I think people like us are gonna have to keep using our voices and all. So with that voice, where can they find you, Steven? Where can people follow you? Where can they find more information?
Well, it's America on Substack. You can find america.substack.com. That's the best place to find me. And I'm writing 3, 4, 5 times a week these days, or not to write. And I hope people will find value there.
You're better than me. I've been falling behind on my writing.
And I say, we need participants, not spectators right now. And I think that's the switch in thinking that people need to take on, right? We are all participants in this, and we can't just watch it happen and wring our hands. We have to figure out what we can do on a daily basis to help make a difference.
I love that's the exact way to put it. And that's the great thing about that I love about this show and the Midas we call it, who watch the show, and the network is these are active participants and every way. When we talk about candidates, they give them money. They're an active bunch. So I appreciate you joining us here again. It's always a pleasure seeing you. It's great to have you back.
My pleasure.
I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more. There's a lot going on.
You bet you.
Talk to you soon. Great conversation with Steven. I love talking to him. Brilliant guy. If you don't follow him, that's America at Substack or america.news. Definitely worth an analysis. Social media is brilliant observer of our American situation. There's a lot to observe. And I kind of wanted to pull that thread a little bit more at the end there of what we were talking about as far as this hope thing goes. And it's something I say a lot is like, hope is not, I am a hopeful guy. I've been very lucky to have some very tough experiences. But in the end, it's the tattoo. If you guys know my tattoo, it says, I'm not done yet. That's my tattoo. And the thing that went with me saying that I'm not done yet is the idea that there's still hope, that when things go bad, when things are hard, I'm able to still find hope, right? And that's despite my life is an unusual one. I've been blessed with an unusual life. I left my hometown at 17 to go to West Point. I spent 22 years in the Army. I went to war 4 times. My very first combat tour, 2 men lost their lives on a mission that we fought overtaking, and they took it. I didn't. 1994, I lost my wife and child in a car accident. My interpreter was murdered, beheaded on camera. My partner in Iraq was murdered in the clinic I built for him. All those things. And I have hope still. I still have hope in spite of all that because I fight for it. Okay. I have hope still because I plan for it. I have hope because I think we're a nation of good, decent people at the very core. I have hope in this moment that I know that my fellow service members will not obey illegal orders and turn on their own fellow citizens. Okay. In mass. All right. I have hope that good people are going to step up, run for office. I have hope that you good people will support them when they do. That's why I have hope. Hope without those things is an empty feeling. It's nothing, right? But to have hope, you must seek it. It is a philosophy. It is an action. I think having hope is a verb. Okay. It's an action word because the next piece of that is an action that goes with it. So it's probably an adverb. I don't know. Either way, yeah, I went to Harvard. Yeah, but either way, my point is a simple one. The reason I still struggle and have optimism and have hope is because I know I will fight to get it. And that's what I ask of you. And that's why you're here in the Midas Touch Network, I bet. That's why you're watching the show on a Friday night instead of hanging out with your family like you should be. Hopefully your whole family's gathered around the computer. That'd be awesome. Either way, I hope you watch it later. I hope you tell your friends. I hope you share it. Click that share button. As many folks can get to watch the show, I appreciate it. As always, I am Fred Welland, host of On Democracy FB1, right here exclusively in the Midas Touch Network now, every Friday night. We've been posting a lot of those in the hot seat interviews. I got another one up this week, or have a couple more scheduled for next week. Those are great interviews with candidates running around the country, running all over different seats for Senate, Congress, even a couple of governor candidates. Check those out. They're on my playlist right here in the Midas Touch Network. In the meantime, keep up your hope, but do something to build it. Find your place in your community. Help a candidate run for office. There's not a race on earth that doesn't need your help. But in the meantime, keep up the fight. Look, it's not going to end until we end it. And that's going to take an action on our part. So get to work, okay? No more BS, no more laying around. Have a great Labor Day weekend. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to spend some time with my beautiful 3-year-old grandson who's visiting me. Can't wait to see him. And that will be what I'll be doing. So you may not see me much. Having said that, thanks again. We'll see you here right next Friday night. As always, I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman. Keep at the fight, folks. Can't wait to see you again.